3, 2, 1.
Alright, so welcome to the latest stream of the Reactor. Give me 1 second while I make sure the volume's working. This is a special stream by request of Lizardking, who joins us in the chat. He did a pre-recorded video for us, about 34 minutes long, where he properly demonstrates P3D. If you remember last week, I tried to demonstrate P3D, which is being included in this month's Reactor. It's a pretty cool set of shaders and built-in objects preloaded that allow you to make some really cool 3D games using nothing more than the event editor. So today he's going to go ahead and answer questions in chat, and we're going to watch the video, learn more about exactly how P3D works from the man himself. So again, if you have any questions during the video, it's a pre-recorded video. You can have those questions answered by Lizardking himself in the chat here on Twitch. Thanks for watching, and enjoy.
Hi everyone, this is Lizardking, and I'm going to show you in this brief video how to use P3D 2.0. Let's take a look at the package. You see there are two MFAs, one with the examples and one with the base template. There are a lot of shaders. You will need to copy these shaders into your FX subfolder. There is a full manual, very detailed, and updating instructions if you were to port an old project you made in previous P3D versions to the new version. This is the main frame. We have the map where we can place the objects. This is the interface layer where we can place interface elements, everything we want to stay on the top of the screen. And this is the projection layer where you can find a lot of the engine objects. So this is the main engine object, contains lots of values you can set to make a lot of things, but we won't see that in detail now. There are three main classes of objects in P3D. The sprites. This is static sprite. You can tell one object from the other by its qualifier. We can see the foreground scenery for this object, and this one is another foreground scenery. This is also other qualifiers. The reference point qualifier means this object can be used as a viewpoint, meaning that we can look at the 3D world from inside this object. The obstacle qualifier is used for sprites to tell the engine they are to deal with as obstacles. And then there's the physical objects group. The player and the monster here belong to physical objects, and you can see it here. This means they can collide and move in the world, and they will be processed by the engine, the gravity code and collision code and whatever an object moving in a 3D world might need. So these objects also can reference sprites. This means we can look at them in the 3D world in the form of sprites. So this object has my sprite as Lizard's world. This means this object sprite is this one, Lizard's world, while the monster, we can have multiple copies of this, as many as we want, is represented in the 3D projection by this other sprite, Goblin, because we can see here that this sprite is Goblin. So in this string you can enter the name of a sprite to reference. The name is the object name, so the one you see here you can change with rename. So if we take a quick look, you can see we have 5 goblins now. And then there's the most complex of the objects group, but the one you will use more, and it is the 3D objects group, 3D objects qualifier. These objects can be used to create your world. Differently from sprites, which are just scaled, rotated and displayed in the projection layer without many other modifications, 3D objects are processed with the shaders to perform a real 3D projection. In P3D 2.0 this projection is equipped with ray tracing, and so we have a real perspective projection, unlike previous version of P3D where only the external shape of the object was perspectively projected, while the textures were not perspectively projected, and this gave some issues that are now completely solved, like seeing things from you see this sprite is in obstacle, so I can collide against, while these other sprites are not set to obstacle. And you can see this is a good perspective projection, because everything is dealt with correctly. You can rotate around, look in various directions. So, how to make a 3D object? As you can see in the top left corner, I've placed these two sprites, which are referenced by these objects here, and these two other objects belong to data qualifier. And similarly to what we did here with the sprite for the player, we can have a texture for the 3D object. So we can see that this P3D here is referencing this model 3D P3D, which is this 3D P3D. This means that this object will be built using this pack of textures. So we can specify which shape this 3D object must have. Here there is cube, so this object will be a cube, and we'll be using this pack of textures. So if we look here in the first animation slot, there is this texture here, and this is the top face of the cube. In the working animation we have 4 different animations here, and these are the 4 faces on the sides of the cube. The running animation contains the bottom face of the cube, so each 3D object can reference an animation slot, and these slots are made of 3 different animations. So you can change animation, you can animate your 3D objects, you can do whatever. For example, we can make it colored, like flashing colors, or like this. Okay, we can loop it, and then each object referencing this texture will play this animation. So this object here references that object, but also this 3D P3D and this 3D P3D. So all these objects will have this front face flashing, but since we only change the front face, the back face won't be flashing. So you can deal with each face individually and animate, change them in any way you want. This is important to notice that the size of the textures will also determine the size of the object. So the first animation will be picked. So if we make this like 96 stretch, okay, this is very important. The hotspot must always be in the bottom left corner of the object. So now and so this is a bit higher, and probably I made this one 96 and these others 92. Okay, so you see it is slightly higher. We can make it whatever to see better the difference. And you see the front face is higher than the other face because dimensions are taken from texture pixel size. This other object here is stretched, as you can see, because uses the same textures but is taller, and this is because we have changed its parameter height here to 300. This is the percentage you want to stretch the object if you want. You can leave it to 0 if you want the object to be normal size, and this is so like this other one. There are a number of things you can do, of course, with 3D objects, not just cubes. If you enter a number here, like 7, P3D will create a 7-faced object with the texture you entered, and it will use the same textures for the faces if there are no textures for other faces, but you can enter as many as 32 faces, so you can make additional faces if you want. We can make this one here in yellow, let's say, and so we should see a yellow face here. As you can see, there's a direct relationship between what we see here, these arrows, and the direction of the faces. So this is the bottom left face in this 7-faced object. You can have as many faces we want, but of course the more faces, the more the object will grow bigger, and the faces will be placed to create a circular object, basically a prism. And you see the face is picked many times because we didn't make different slots for these other directions. In P3 2.0 you can also have this different set of shapes which I called triangles, because they're made of triangles. So if you write 5 triangle, you will have 5 triangles making up a pyramid. This looks weird because the front face is different size than the other face, so we can fix that by making the face same size as the others, which were 92. So 92, okay, bottom left, okay. And here's our triangle. Collisions are dealt with again automatically, you don't need to do anything. You just need to set the object as obstacle. You can make the object an obstacle here. It's obstacle type. There are other choices you can make here, like loop or mask. Mask will directly perform a collision check of this object against this object in the map layer. Another set of shapes you can do are flat top pyramids, and you can make them by specifying how much the top face of the triangle must be in relation to the bottom face, to the base basically. So if we specify 0.6 here, we have a top face which is 0.6 times the bottom, but we don't see the top face here because by default P3D doesn't create top faces unless we do T here. Stays for top, of course, and the same for bottom faces, because in prisms you want to really create top and bottom faces frequently. So you can see that this face looks very weird here because this doesn't follow the shape of the underlying object. So what you need to do in this case is 5. We need a pentagon. So I prepared a pentagon graphics, and this can be any size you want here, really, because the engine will automatically scale it to the required size to fit on the top of the object. This will of course break the other non-pyramids objects here, but we don't care now. We can just take a look at our correct pyramid now. Here's the top, perfectly fitting on our object. Okay. one of the main things you need to know about P3D is that whatever you see in the map layer is the X and Y coordinates are taken directly from the objects here. So if you move an object, the object will be moved in the 3D world too. So here we are in front of this green guy, while if I place here we are on the side, while the Z coordinates is taken from here, and we can put in this value whatever we want to make the object be very high. For example, if you put 500, we start up, gravity is pulling us down. You can easily create new sprite objects just by dragging and dropping a sprite inside the frame. You must make sure the hotspot is in the bottom position. We just have 2 directions here, but you can have up to 32, as you know. Now you can use this as sprite for the enemy if we don't want to use the goblin, for example. You just need to do this way. Untick this. No, we don't need fight detection here. You just need to apply the mask qualifier, and we just call this hitman, and we can reference this hitman. We untick create a start, because the engine will create all sprites needed. And now this is the real enemy in the map, and we can reference the hitman this way. Let's see. Here's the hitman working, and it's really easy to modify an existing object, so that's why I suggest you to use this mainframe as a basic template for you to create your games in any way you want. Another set of objects is cameras. This is really not a specific set of objects, but just an object with the qualifier reference point. There is a built-in code for different kind of cameras, and I've placed them in the sample objects frame here. There are sample objects for different movement types, so you can take advantage of the built-in movements you find inside P3D for most situations, for cars, for 8-directional movement, for flight in games, and this is the basic first-person game like Doom and this is the set of cameras. You can find here the follow camera, which will follow from behind your player. We can place it in our frame there, so we can copy both of these objects and place them here, so we can take a look at how they look really. And you see there's still another camera type, the free camera, which is just a plain object you can move and change its angles to point towards what you want, while all the built-in cameras will point against this object, the camera tool object. So you need to place the camera tool object against the position you want to look at. In this case we have it placed against the main player in the code here. Simply flag 250 is the flag which states that this is the currently active object. You can have any number of players, any number of cameras, so flag 250 simply tells the engine that this is the player you are currently moving, so you can switch through any number of players and play how many number of players you want. Now we simply set the camera tool against these objects, so we set the position here, we set the angle, because this will tell also the camera which angle the player is currently facing, and the Z position to the position of the player, so the camera knows the height the player is currently at. So we can say this is the isometric camera, the follow camera, and the look at camera. We have the look at camera, which looks at our player here. We have the green guy and goblin are two reference points, so we can use them as camera as well, because we have placed the reference point qualifier in them. So now first we see the follow camera, which simply follows our player from behind, and the isometric camera, which is for isometric kind of games. You can see you can walk around. You can customize, of course, the distance the camera will follow the player from, and a lot of other things really. The goblin camera, we see what the goblin sees. The green guy camera, which is placed at the eye of the green guy, which is just static here, so not very interesting really. Oh, the map view, we can see the map when the camera is now, so if we change camera the map will scroll against, but since our frame stops here we won't see much more. P3 comes with a user manual, a very comprehensive user manual of lots of pages with many examples, pictures, and everything you need to know about P3D is here, but you don't really need to read everything, no worries, because most of it is just the basic chapter. All the rest is for advanced features, and you can see there's a lot of stuff on how to create your models and to join them to create structures, different structures. We can briefly take a look at the skybox objects now, because it's a new object introduced in P3D 2.0. This is just like a cube, and this is the front face, the back face, right and left. Here we have the top, and here the bottom face. We can customize the skybox object as well. For example, if we say hello here, we can see hello in the sky here, and this is scaled and positioned to resemble the sky, so you can customize it in any way you want. For example, we can take a look at the famous castle example, which is one of the basic examples included from version 1 of P3D. Okay, so we can hear a lot of things here, like the moving objects. You can have moving objects, rotating objects. These collisions here are dealt by the engine automatically. You don't need to do anything to specify, except that the object is an obstacle. You can jump over crates here, you can do whatever. You just need to place your objects in the frame and the engine will do everything. You can jump on these objects here, and the engine deals with the movements of the object which is rotating under us. Okay, and there's we can fly to cheat a bit here, and we can look around in many ways. We can rotate by the 3 Euler angles. You see, you can rotate in a lot of different ways. This is very the very tall towers you see here are made by repeating textures, so you can just make one short texture and the engine will repeat it all over the object again. So there are loops you can do. here. You can do whatever basically. There are also lighting effects in P3D. You can see these objects are light emitters. You can also, the projectile here is light emitting, so you can, oops, we hit a goblin here. Oh, okay. There is the mouse movement also if you want. So the lizardman here is moving with mouse movement, so it will move based on where I aim with the mouse. Okay, so there's the isometric camera here as well, which is pointing at this other sprite, which is an isometric sprite. Of course, an isometric sprite will look much better in this situation. Let's take a look at one of the new examples, the magical keep example. The preloading module is being improved, so it loads the graphics at the start of frame and won't stutter in frame. You can see there's this nice shading effects for the bottom of the lake. Wait for this platform to bring us up. There's a follow camera here, but also a first person mouse we can use, but we will just use the follow camera for now. You can jump, and see this. This was made using simple 3D objects, and thanks to the, you can see the camera follows the profile of this loop. This is an option of loops. You can walk and the camera will follow the player at the angle of this loop is facing. So these objects here are placed not paying much attention, because we have the Z buffer, which takes into account how to set pixels behind other pixels, so everything will be merged together in the way you place it in the frame. So you can place things really without paying much attention, and you can rotate, scale and angle the objects to make structures like this one, which is slightly bending, or this house here with a roof, and these walls here are just placed and moved, angled a bit by its various angles, so they look like are slightly, oops, you can jump up this if you want, up here, or the collisions are really detailed. The collision engine is very detailed and can deal with all the situations involving meshes. And here we can go in this circle, his magic circle, and we can fall down to see. We can also fall inside. Oh, okay. I think this is enough. This is enough for now. We have run out of time. Now I want to show you some of the upcoming features you will find in the next free update, and there will be a new set of objects. You can see them here. This is the new qualifier, shapes. You can state if the object is a sphere, a box, like box, we already have boxes, but this one will be much more performant, like 6 times performant as current boxes, because it will be made of just one object versus the 6 faces a box can be comprised of, and will be much more much smoother than current boxes. And this one is a cylinder, and let's see them in action. So another another cool thing is that you can freely scale and rotate them with minimum impact on performance. You see, as this can be very interesting because you can do a lot of things with these new shapes, and more shapes will be added in the future. They can rotate on any angle, and you can scale them in all dimensions just by changing their values. And they are very smooth and rendered from the inside as well, outside and inside. And you see that you can have a lot of objects, much more than what you can have now, with much better performances for complex shapes you can do by joining these shapes together. And so there's much more you will be able to do in the next version of P3D. And make sure you also check out the website at lizardking.co, because you will find in the repository for P3D new examples and models you will be able to download and use in your projects, as well as source code for new complete examples, like this one with zombies. This one you can see here. There's free source available, and you can download everything and see how this game was made. Now we should be able to do a much better version of this with the new version of P3D, because we will be able to do this all these palaces with just one object, where they are 4. This sidewalk with just one object, when this is 5 here, and these cylinders here with just one object, when they are don't remember, but maybe 12 or more faces for each one. So you see that with just 3 objects you have a perfect shape and use for less objects. So this video is over now. Thanks Geek Team for hearing it on the Reactor, and if you liked it, I'll be happy to know, so I can have more of this in the future. Thank you for watching.